بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هل أتاك حديث الغاشية وجوه يومئذ خاشعة عاملة ناصبة تصلى نارا حامية.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونشكره ونتوكل عليه ونصلي ونسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه وبعض. All praises belong to the Almighty Allah. May His peace and blessings be upon the Prophet of Islam, the one sent as a message to mankind. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon His household followers and all those who follow the path of Allah to the day of judgment. We thank Allah once again for bringing Ramadan to us. For the past years, all the CDs that we produced for education and orientation on Ramadan was more of presentational than anything else. This time round, we are changing the methodology to questions and answers. In this presentation, we'll be looking at the questions and answers on Ramadan, and we'll end by looking at some of the mistakes that are made in Ramadan. We welcome Ramadan, and we thank Allah once again for keeping us alive, giving us the good health to take us through this holy month. This month, somebody may ask, what are its characteristics? We would say that this month is the best of all months. It is a month of blessings. Indeed, a saying of the Prophet states that as-siyamu junnatun minan nar, that fasting in this holy month is a protection from the hellfire. And then again, in another narration, which could be directed to indicate that this month is a month of hope. It is a month of blessings. And it is a month of forgiveness. The hadith states, Man sama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi. That anyone who fasts throughout this month and then does the fasting with consistent assessment, consistent evaluation of everything he does so that it conforms to the dictates of the Almighty, all his sins will be forgiven. Indeed, if this is what will be attained in this holy month, or at the end of it, then indeed this is a great month that we should all strive to make or get the best out of it. This month, one may ask, how do we get to know that Ramadan is around and we have to start? There is a whole lot of hullabaloo about this subject every year. But if Muslims were to follow the simple format provided by the Prophet in respect of how to start it and how to end it, wouldn't be in the mess that sometimes we find ourselves. Because the prophetic direction or directive on how to start or when to start and when to end it is very clear. Hear the saying of the Prophet, or listen to the saying of the Prophet, to the effect that Sumu liru'yatihi, that start the fast when the moon is sighted. Wafturu liru'yatihi, and then break the fast when the moon is sighted. Wa in ghumma alaykum fa akmilu 'iddat sha'ban 30 yawm. But if the weather is not clear for us to sight the moon, and therefore when Sha'ban was 29 and we're looking for the moon, we couldn't find it. So the Prophet then recommends that we add 1 day to the 29 days of Sha'ban for them to be 30, and the following day is automatically the beginning of Ramadan. What this means is that when the 30 days of Sha'ban are attained, we don't need to sit and wait for the sighting of the moon, because the rule is that if we're unable to get it at the end of the 29th, we add 1 more day. So the calculation is over. But some people have taken the literal meaning of this hadith, that we have to see it before we start. They have forgotten of the clause that the Prophet introduced in the hadith, that if you do not sight the moon, add 1 day to Sha'ban, and that is it. Indeed, the subject of fasting in Ramadan will therefore compel us to examine the third question. What are the pillars of fast in Ramadan? And when we speak of pillars, it means we are talking of the foundational principles upon which fasting in Ramadan is built. When we say something is a pillar, it means others stand on it. The pillars alone cannot stand. They only act as the pivot upon which other things are placed. So the question then is, and I repeat, what are the pillars of fast in Ramadan? In general terms, they are 3. The pillars of Ramadan fast are 3. The first one is an niyyah. That is the first one. And indeed, a niyyah is the foundation upon which any Muslim conduct is built. If the niyyah is correct, the action is considered to follow suit. If the niyyah is wrong, then the action is also considered to be wrong. The strength that we have in respect of this hadith is that it serves as the fulcrum around which every activity of the Muslim is built. The hadith goes like this, and a very popular one for that matter. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that all actions are judged according to intentions. One key question that comes up here is, when is the niyyah going to be taken? We are still dealing with the first pillar, intention. When is it going to be taken? Is it taken at the beginning of Ramadan for it to cover the 29 or 30 days of Ramadan? Or one has to make the intention every evening before he goes to bed, or at the time that he is taking, he or she is about to take the dawn meal? The four schools of legal thought in Islam: the school of thought of Imam Abu Hanifa, that of Imam Malik, that of Shafi'i, and that of Ahmed bin Hanbal, debated over when to take the niyyah. So as I just indicated, the four Imams debated over the subject. The three Imams, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmed bin Hanbal, opined that the intention for each day of the whole month should be taken on its own. In other words, before one takes to bed, the person has to make the intention of fasting the following day. Or if the person is unable to do it before he goes to bed, then it has to be done just before the dawn meal is taken. Then Imam Abu Hanifa, he took the position that the intention could be made at the beginning of Ramadan, and the intention is made for the whole period of the month, meaning it may not be necessary for the intention to be made on a daily basis. One point I want to make clear here is that when scholars have differences over an issue, you look for the one that has basis, the one that has proof, either in the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet. When one examines the issue of intention, the classical benefit of making an intention on daily basis is that it totally and strongly links the believer with the days of Ramadan. On the other hand, if the intention is made for the whole period, once at a time, it may not even compare the believer to wake up at night and pray, or the dawn meal, which is sunnah, to be taken. So when we weigh the two positions of the Imams in respect of when the intention is to be taken, I strongly support the position taken by the three Imams, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmed bin Hanbal, to the effect that the intention should be taken either in the evening before one goes to bed, or the time of the taking of the dawn meal. When that is done, the individual really feels, the believer clearly sees that he is awake with Ramadan. So the first pillar is intention and niyyah. The second pillar is what is called al-imsak. Al-imsak means waking up in the morning or going through the fasting itself. The fasting itself is called imsak. The reason why it is called imsak in Arabic is that you are abstaining from certain things. Principal among them, food, drink, and sex, and other things. Imsak, you hold yourself back. The third pillar is the period, the time. Quran says, وَأَتِمُّ الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ, Quran chapter 2. And then complete the fasting up to the evening or the night. At this juncture, therefore, it is quite clear that Ramadan has three pillars: intention and niyyah, al-imsak, that is fasting itself, and then number three, the period for the fast. Nobody in life goes into any endeavor without necessarily looking at the purpose of that endeavor. That clearly distinguishes man from animals. In other words, we are not automatons. We are beings gifted with intellect and mind. And we are supposed to act intellectually. We are supposed to act rationally. That whatever we do should have a purpose for which we are carrying out. This brings us to question number 4. What is the purpose of Ramadan fast? And the answer is very clear in Quran chapter 2, verse 183. Where Allah states, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. That all ye who believe, fasting has been made compulsory or incumbent upon you, as it was made for those who lived before you. So that this is where the purpose is. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may acquire piety. So the key purpose of Ramadan is piety. Some scholars interpret piety to be God consciousness, and they are right. That is, you are awake with a particular consistent thought about the Creator who brought you and me here. And that is what Ramadan is supposed to help you and me attain. If you set a target, you set a purpose, you set a vision, and you work towards it and you do not attain it, you are called a failure. And that is what Ramadan is all about. If at the end of Ramadan, after going through the pain of hunger, and within yourself and within myself, we are unable to capture a good situation where our God's consciousness or our Allah consciousness, our piety has gone up beyond the level where we were at the time of the beginning of Ramadan, I can assure you that we have failed. Ramadan is to help you and me attain a level where we will fear Allah wherever we are. When we are at the business, when we are dealing with people in society, when we are going to bed, even when we are in our toilets and washrooms, Allah is running through our minds. That is what Ramadan is to help us attain. But the key question is, how many of us attain this? It is a difficult task. But once an individual is given a task and a purpose, then there should be in place a process that will help the person attain the purpose. This leads us to question number 5. How does Ramadan fast help one attain piety? Indeed, every human being has 3 parts: a body, a mind, and a spirit. And I call the mind the watchman of the spirit and the body, because it is the mind that directs the human being. When you are walking and you are walking straight forward, it is the mind that is taking you to that direction. If you are walking backwards, it is the mind that is taking you to that direction. When you sleep, and the Prophet has appropriately advised us to sleep on our right hand side, it is the mind that is helping you do that. The Prophet spoke against sleeping on the left side, and people did not understand at that time, because scientific knowledge had not reached that level, why he had asked us to sleep on our right hand side. Modern research in medicine has shown that the heart on our left hand side is the one that pumps the blood. That is overtaxed. So when you sleep on your left side, what it means is that you are giving that part of the heart extra burden to carry. So sleep on the right. So the mentality, the mind is the one that is going to direct the body to sleep on the right side. If you are deeply rooted in spirituality, you wake up at night 2 a.m. when everybody is asleep, and because of the high level of your Allah consciousness, you think that you have to cut short your sleep and thank the Almighty. That level of spirituality, it is the mind that helps you to attain. But as the mind is trying to direct the body and is trying to direct the spirit, the two remains in constant competition for space within the human self. The body wants illicit sex, wants food. The spirit gets its nourishment and food from the word of Allah. So as the body is being pulled to material things, the spirit is being pulled to Allah. And the two are fighting for control over the human being. Therefore, Ramadan is around. Then you start your fast. When you fast, what it means is that you are depriving the body the nourishment it needs during the day. You are depriving the body some of the things it needs for it to be active. So the competition between the body and the spirit is going to lead to the realization of the spirit's dominance over the weak body. And because the fasting is being done for the sake of Allah, as a reflection of the first pillar of fasting, which is an-niyyah, doing it for the sake of Allah, the spirit is strengthened by Allah. So at the end of the day, the spirit becomes victorious over bodily pleasures, and taqwa is attained. Not only this, there are other methods recommended by the Quran, recommended by the Sunnah of the Prophet. That brings us to question number 6. What are the other methods that help the believer to develop taqwa? When this holy month is around, it is more like a military training. There are certain dispositions, there are certain activities that the Muslim should be doing consistently and will remain so even after the end of the month. Activity number 1, reading of the Holy Quran. Unfortunately, the Quran has been divided into 30 parts. And the Prophet says that in a hadith narrated by Ibn Mas'ud, that anyone who reads the Quran, Allah gives the person for every single letter, not a word, every single letter, Allah gives 10 blessings. And as I indicated right now, fortunately for us, the glorious book has been divided into 30 parts to match the days of Ramadan. So, day number 1, you can read part 1. Day number 2, you can read part 2. Day number 3, you can read part 3. And sometimes for want of time, any good reader can use 30 minutes to complete one part. If you cannot do all that, in the morning, which is the best time for the reading of the Quran, around 4 a.m., then divide it into 2. You read one hizb, that will take 15 minutes in the morning, and before you go to bed, you read another hizb for 15 minutes. Then you have made your day for Ramadan. A part in the Holy Quran. A part in the Quran. If you consistently do this, by the end of Ramadan, you realize that the reading of the Quran or listening to it, if you can't read it, listen to it. If you can't read out the Arabic version, you shouldn't be cut away from the Quran. Read the translation, listen to the Arabic version on tape. If you do this for a period of 1 month, by the end of the month, you realize that the reading or listening to the Quran has become part and parcel of you. So you carry it along into the other months of the year. Activity number 2. This month is a month of ibadah, a month of consistent worship. And the best time to do the worship is after midnight. And you've got to cut short your sleep. I've got to cut short my sleep. The best time for nawafil, I'm talking of voluntary prayer, is between 1:30 and 4 o'clock. And hear the hadith of the Prophet, narrated by Abu Hurairah, to the effect that during that part of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent his blessings to the sky of the world and asked his servant, who are those who have sinned against me? And I will forgive them. Who are those looking for my blessings? And I will grant them. Therefore, that is the best time for prayer. When you wake up at that time, you might have slept with your shepherd with water. There are 2 scenarios. Either you slept with the shepherd water, or you did it before sleeping. If you did not do it before sleeping, as it was the practice of the Prophet, then pray 8 rak'ah and add the 3, making 11, according to Aisha. That was how the Prophet used to do it. Or if you performed the shepherd water, then you can limit yourself to the 8 rak'ah that you wake up to pray around 1:30, 2 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock. When you are praying, you pray the 8 rak'ah. In each rak'ah, or after every 2 rak'ah, that you're going to do the salam before you rise up from your state of prostration to do the salam, and your forehead is to the ground. Because according to the Prophet, that is the time that the servant of Allah is very close to Allah. Pray to Allah in any language that you can. Hear him rightly. In Quran chapter 30, verse 21, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ. That from among his signs and miracles in creation are the creation of the heavens and the earth, and then the diversity of your color and languages. If you can't pray in Arabic, don't worry. Speak your Dabani. Pray to Allah in Dabani. Pray to Allah in your Franfra Talensi language. Pray to Allah in your Key. Pray to Allah in your Hausa. Pray and pray and pray and pray. You should not be held back by your inability to pray in Arabic. Allah hears all languages. That's one of his miracles. And the format for the prayer while you're down there is very simple. First, thank Allah. Don't walk straight into the prayer. The first step is that thank Allah, Alhamdulillah, all praises for Allah, and then pray for the Prophet. After that, ask for forgiveness for yourself. Because according to a hadith of the Prophet, sins act as a barrier between the servant and the Almighty. So what you have to do before you usher yourself into the prayer proper, then ask for Allah's forgiveness so that the way will be clear for you. Thereafter, pray for yourself, pray for parents, wives and children, brothers and sisters, and the entire ummah. And then towards the end of the prayer, thank Allah for taking you through the process, and then pray for the Prophet, and the format is over. Activity number 3 is the remembrance of Allah. We call it technically a dhikr. Quran says, "Uzkuruni adhkurkum." Allah says, remember me and I will remember you. The expression "I will remember you" from the Almighty does not mean that Allah doesn't know us. He knows us. The Quran says, "Ya'lamu kha'inatal a'yuni wa ma tukhfi as-sudur." That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything that is hidden even behind the eyes, and whatever is captured in our hearts. He knows our movements. In another Quranic text, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that even a leaf from a tree that drops on the surface of the earth, Allah knows. But when we remember Him, He knows we are showing humility. He knows we are submitting to Him. He knows we are toiling in line with what He wants. So He put His blessings on us. That is the remembrance of Allah. When we say Allah is a remember, it means He is going to bless us. After morning prayers, just sit down quietly. After the Assalamu alaikum, if you can say Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, just this, don't go far. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, glory be to Allah with all His praises. Just this, Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. The Prophet says, anyone who says this simple format of remembrance of Allah 100 times, the reward that the person is going to get can never be equal with anything that a person can get unless the person does the same dhikr. It means the blessings are abundant. The blessings are unlimited. What are the other? Question number 7. What are the other benefits of Ramadan? I've categorized that into 3. spiritual, physical, and moral. The spiritual benefits, I have earlier indicated some of them. Forgiveness from the Almighty, blessings from Him, guidance from Him, which is reflected in the hadith of the Prophet. Man sama Ramadan imanan wahtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi. That anyone who fasts and consistently assesses his performance and work in the month, Allah will forgive him of all his sins. Another spiritual benefit is that it leads to Allah consciousness. Piety, that is the key purpose of Ramadan. Physical. Modern research has shown that, scientific research has shown that fasting re-energizes, it revitalizes the body. Because when you are fasting, your organs are on break. They've gone on holiday. They've worked within you for 11 months. And now you're giving them a short break. After Ramadan, they are all cleansed up and reactivated for better work. Finally, the moral aspect of Ramadan is extremely important. During fast, people learn how to be kind. During fast, people learn how to be patient. During fast, people learn how to be tolerant. These are the key components of the moral aspect of Ramadan. In fact, let me just explain the scenario of how patience is acquired. The Prophet ﷺ knows that we are human beings and that in our daily interactions we'll be offending one another. And this glorious month of Ramadan, the Prophet appropriately advises that if somebody irritates you, just simply say, Inni sa'im, that I am fasting. And we shouldn't forget. The Prophet again says that all actions of the servant of Allah belong to him. Bible says, as for fasting, it is mine. As-siyamu li wa ana ajzi bihi. That fasting you and I are doing, Allah is saying it is His. And He is appropriately going to reward the individual. One of the key derivatives from this hadith is that when one fasts, the person learns to develop self-restraint. When one fasts, the person learns to be kind. When you are in a state of hunger, you can clearly see the suffering of the poor, the suffering of the needy out there, the suffering of the deprived. And your heart will then be softened through the process of fasting so that you give up as and when it is necessary. Who are those exempted from fasting? It is not everybody who is asked to fast. And that is our question number 8. They are of two categories. The first category are those who break their fast during the month of Ramadan and are asked to pay back after the month. Then we have another category who cannot fast at all but are allowed to feed poor people or a poor person. From this very category of those who cannot fast at all are those who they cannot fast, but do not have the resources to feed a poor person. In respect of the first category, the category of those who break their fast during the month of Ramadan and are supposed to pay back, from that category, we have the sick, Somebody is down with malaria, headache, stomach ache. Something temporary. Then we have the traveler. Then we have the woman who is pregnant. Then we have the woman who is in her state of confinement, that is, has delivered. These 4 people, they don't fast during the month of Ramadan, but after Ramadan, they have to pay back. And even in the case of the pregnant woman, and then the woman in her state of confinement, the woman who has delivered, some scholars propose that after she is paying back, fasting, after Ramadan, paying back, if that is voluntary, it's not compulsory, she can also give some sadaqah to the poor. Then we have the category of those who do not have the capacity to fast at all. People with chronic diseases, cancer, ulcer, diabetes, hypertension, and the rest. And those who are elderly, physically incapacitated by age, because they are too old and too weak to fast. The recommendation is that the person feeds a poor person. And when we speak of a poor person, we are talking of a person who cannot even feed himself in a day. So you look for the person. Poor, struggles to make 1 meal even in a day. And based on our calculation, in today's terms, if you get 3 Ghana cedis or 2 cedis 50 pesos per day for a person, that will be good. So you multiply by 30, that gives you 75 Ghana cedis or 750,000, or 90 Ghana cedis, 900,000, and you give that bulk sum of money at the beginning of Ramadan to one person, or you feed the person on daily basis till the end of Ramadan. But if the person cannot fast and cannot also give fidya, feed a poor person, the person is free. Quran says, "La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha." Allah does not impose a duty that is beyond the capacity of his servant on him or her. Question number 9. Does medical injection invalidate fasting? There are a lot of misconceptions out there. Some people think that if you are fasting, you don't have to take an injection. The answer is yes and no. Every injection and its chemical constituents. So if an injection does not contain nutritious materials, then the person can take it. What this means is that if the intention is not going to stop you from feeling hungry, then you have to take it. But no, if the injection is going to help you not to feel hungry, then it is haram. It is not acceptable. But if it is just for medicational purposes, and then it does not have a nutritional value, then it is allowed for you to take the injection. Somebody was fasting. And around 2 a.m., I think he went to the spot where he used to eat banku and chozafi. He had forgotten it was in Ramadan. That was his daily routine. He went in there, sat, and filled his stomach. Thereafter, he remembered that he had eaten in the month of fasting, and he was fasting. So he gave me a call. Man, I'm in trouble. I said, what is it? Then he said, I had come here to eat some banku. The Quran says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Indeed, you have not been sent except as a messenger to mankind. And this religion is a religion of the merciful Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the hearts of his servants. So, the question that we are first, question number 10, is what happens if somebody, out of forgetfulness, eats in the month of Ramadan. Hear the saying of the Prophet. The Prophet says categorically that it is Allah who has fed him. Once he remembers, he stops eating and continues with his fasting, and his fasting is intact. Nothing is wrong with it. What of the situation? Question number 12. Question number 11. What of the situation where somebody, and we have a good number of them, very weak in faith, very weak in iman, and they have very low level of Allah consciousness. When people are busily fasting, waking up at night to pray to the Almighty Lord, he relaxes and does not fast in the month of Ramadan. He's not sick. He deliberately eats in the month of Ramadan. When Abu Huraira was asked about such a person was brought to him that the person had eaten during the day in the month of Ramadan. Then he said, لا يقبل منه صوم سنة. That person, even if he fasts a whole year, Allah will never accept the fasting from him. And it was repeated also by Ibn Mas'ud. We also come across another challenge, question number 12. When some people call to ask, is it allowed for us to use the paste, Pepsodent, close-up, and all that during the day in Ramadan? The principle that we have and we know is that it is something that passes through the throat that breaks it. You drink water, it passes through the throat, so it breaks it. You eat food, it passes through the throat and it breaks it. But what about paste? It is not going to pass through the throat. The stronger school of thought is that we have what we call al-ahwat, al-amal bil-ahwat, working with that which is related to precaution. If you take the paste and you paste, a smell remains, sweetness remains in the mouth. The mouth remains sweet. When saliva mixes with it out, what remains in the mouth is some sweetness that you will be swallowing. And the risk that it may tamper with the smooth flow of your fast. And of course, if it is the smell in your mouth that you are running away from, Allah says that He is happy with it, according to the hadith of the Prophet. So I would suggest that we stay away from the use of paste. But of course, chewing stick, the dry ones, you can use them. Question number 12. If a person is indebted to Ramadan, of course, indebtedness is to Allah. You missed some days in Ramadan. You were sick and you missed a number of days. When is the person, that is question number 12, when is the person going to pay? All scholars agree as early as possible, because when you are indebted to Allah, you have to clear it as fast as possible. Question number 13. What is the ruling of having sexual intercourse with your wife in the day of Ramadan? Because of the gravity of this sin, it's a very serious thing. Because after breakfast in the evening, the deen allows you to contact your wife. So why can't you be patient? Then, mashallah, you fall on your wife during the day of Ramadan. And that one is different from food. Because nobody will have sex and said, I forgot. Because the process of thinking that goes into it will even remind you that you are in the month that you are not supposed to contact your wife in the daytime. But the individual has done it. Of course, the fasting is broken, spoiled. And the punishment is that the person will have to fast 60 days continuously without break. Or the person should feed 60 poor people. If you are one person, if one has to feed, I just calculated 75 Ghana cedis or 90 Ghana cedis. If you take it in respect of the 90 Ghana cedis, 60 people, 90 times 60, that is 5,400 Ghana cedis. That is 54 million. Why the punishment for this, the fidya for this, why is it so harsh? It has to be so because anyone who deliberately has sex with a wife is somebody who is dead in spirit, is somebody who is weak in faith. Question number 14. What happens if one dies in the month of Ramadan and he owed some debt in respect of the days of Ramadan? For example, the person started the fasting, broke it for about 10 days, and couldn't survive and died. So it means the person is indebted to Ramadan 10 good days. Because once the person dies, everything is over. But what about the number of days that if he had been alive, he would have paid? According to the hadith of the Prophet, he says, Man mata wa alayhi siyamun sama anhu waliyuhu. There anyone who dies and has some debt in Ramadan to pay, that fasting should be done by the person who inherits the person. The wali can be the one who is inherited, his son, any of his family folk will have to stand in and do the fasting for the person. Question number 15. Question number 15 is focused on some of the mistakes that we make during the month of Ramadan. Some people think that mistake number 1. So I'm asking, what are some of the common mistakes? Question number 15. What are some of the common mistakes that Muslims make during the fast in Ramadan? Mistake number 1. When one wants to make the intention to fast, he should not say it verbally. Intention is in the heart because Allah knows whatever is in the heart. That is point number 1. Point number 2 is the timing of suhoor, the dawn meal. A lot of people eat up to the time of the adhan of Fajr. It is a big mistake because Ramadan fast does not start from the adhan of Fajr. According to a saying of the Prophet, Ramadan time starts from a time that if you were to read the Quran, from that time up to the time of adhan will be about 50 verses. What this means is that if Fajr adhan is about 4:45, it means you have to stop eating around 4:30, 4:20. You have to stop. You don't have to eat up to the time that the adhan is called for Fajr. The eating and the period lapse between the eating and the adhan should be equivalent to the time that one will need to read 50 verses of the Quran. The mistake number 3 Mistake number 3 is that as if a lot of people, as if they are going to war with Ramadan. And because of this, a lot of people, the poor and the rich, they struggle to incur a lot of expenditure in Ramadan. Muslims of today do not lead simple lives and inexpensive lives in terms of eating in Ramadan. Ramadan is to help us cultivate the habit of simplicity, the habit of making things easy for ourselves. But just look at the dawn meal people take. Under normal circumstances, especially at least I know of Accra and other places, a lot of people do not eat 3 meals, 3 square meals, no. Today, a lot of people are eating 2 meals. But because of this mentality of going into imminent war with fasting, they spend a lot of money in the morning to cook, and in the evening, the breakfast plus dinner. So they end up spending more money on food. Imagine somebody eating banku at 3 a.m. Somebody eating fufu at 3 a.m. Somebody taking in ampesier at 3 a.m. Indeed, this is a practice far away from simplicity and easiness. What was the practice of the Prophet? The Prophet of simplicity, the Prophet of Rahmah, the Prophet of compassion, the Prophet who always strived to make life very simple and comfortable for people, because his examples were supposed to be followed. He did examples or led a life that will make the poor comfortable. According to a narration of Abu Hurairah, the Prophet's dawn meal, that is suhoor, was jur'atan min al-ma'i wa tamratayn. That a cup of water and 2 pieces of dates. That was his dawn meal. Compare that to yours and mine today. Are we on the right track? And then again, we need another mistake number 4. We are supposed to join the Jama prayer all the time. But some people in Ramadan, they stay away. It is forbidden for us to do that. Mistake number 5. We need to know that at the beginning of this presentation, I said the pillars of fasting are 3. Intention, the fasting itself, and the period it takes for us to fast. These are the pillars. And the pillars come along with things that will have to be placed on the pillars. Mistake number 5 is that a lot of Muslims who are bad in character continue to be bad. They don't even change. In other words, one of the key mistakes is that some people will be fasting, but the morals of Ramadan will be ignored. Patience, rahmah, compassion, and mercy. And then, mistake number 6. A lot of Muslims, because when you are going into any venture, you need to know what is it. A lot of Muslims do not take the trouble to read a lot about Ramadan so that their fasting will be based on knowledge. Mistake number 7. Some people out there think that when you are fasting, you don't have to swallow the saliva in your mouth. Saliva does not invalidate. It does not make your fasting invalid. You can also use perfume and soap and wash down. One other mistake is that when you are breaking the fast, please don't take in anything that is based on acid. Orange, pineapple, and all those stuff that has acid in them. Avoid them because they will lead to gastritis and ulcer. Because the stomach is empty, don't put in orange. it will corrode the stomach wall and lead to inflammation of the stomach. Finally, we have to put up good character so that during the whole month, there are some people, Ramadan they are good, after Ramadan they are bad. That is hypocrisy of the worst kind. The Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu dkhulu fi silmi kaffa. That all you who believe, enter into total, and I will add, consistent submission to the Almighty. And more especially, in this holy month where the Prophet says, Awwaluhu rahmah, the beginning of the month, the first 10 days is mercy. Wa awsathu maghfirah, the second 10 days represent forgiveness. Wa akhiruhu itqun min an-nar, and the last 10 days represent salvation from the hellfire. What else do we want again? That is a great word from the messenger of Allah to you and me. This is the opportunity we have to live and lead a good life. May Allah accept our fast. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع وجوه يومئذ ناعمة لسعيها راضية